SpaceX's connection with the US military arouses concerns. It's been a long way coming without any thoughts of a space agency being sponsored for military purposes. And of all companies that seem to have thrived outside the influence of any nation's government, SpaceX is the most successful thus far. But what are the concerns concerning a potential connection between SpaceX and the US military? Hit the like button and stay through to the end of this video to learn about how SpaceX has been implicated with the US military. Welcome to your favorite channel, Unlimited SpaceX. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more exciting news about SpaceX projects and Elon Musk's many controversies. You wonder how SpaceX is seen as a lackey of the US military despite having decades of seemingly no interaction with the government. This video will provide you with all you need to know, and we would like to know what you think in the comments sections. Let us get on with the video. A debacle has risen against Elon Musk's Starlink projects, ultimately hindering SpaceX. The growth of SpaceX has triumphed most of the world's superpowered nations, and we've been anticipating a turn of events that assumptions would spur that it's a threat. You could say that a bit of jealousy could set in from those whom SpaceX has exceeded in terms of space technology. The fact that these connections are rising now shows just how real the whole challenge that SpaceX's advancements have been. There have been suggestions that SpaceX had a bit of a partnership with the US military in the past. We don't know how deep the cooperation went, but it seemed pretty extensive. It dates as far back as the first Starlink project. The idea is that the entire Starlink project has been with military involvement right from the start. Now that's a bold claim that can only be proven by damning evidence. Has there been a previous open statement issued by SpaceX that could help us affirm the integrity of these concerns? Yes. Our research showed us that back in 2018, the on-seat SpaceX executive, Gwynne Shotwell, stated that the company could contribute to the military power of the US by helping to launch weapons into space. The weapons would function as a viable defense for the United States. It seems like it would be a passing comment, but the US military buttressed that fact later in 2020 when it announced an upcoming project with SpaceX. From what we gathered, it would involve building a rocket that can lift as much as 80 metric tons worth of cargo from the US to any part of the world in just about an hour. That would not be so problematic if not for the immediate epiphany about just how much progress SpaceX has made with thousands of its Starlink satellites. People are beginning to wonder that with the suspicions that SpaceX might be working with the US military, there might be the off chance that the increasing number of Starlink satellites might be for a more nefarious purpose. Mind you, none of these are confirmed information that ascertains the likelihood of such an occurrence. But can you guess where the accusations are coming from? You probably guessed right. It's from China. There have been reported cases of Starlink satellites being on a collision course with some of China's space apparatus. One of the experts reported that the Starlink satellites moving at low orbit around the Earth present immediate danger to other national space agencies' technology. That cannot be said to be widely off the mark, as most of these spacecraft also fly at low orbit around the Earth, for example the Chinese space station. Then arose an outrageous claim that the military could deploy the satellites to carry out espionage missions against their spacecraft and other nations of the world. They see Starlink as an extension of the US military that could present a source of general intelligence to bolster the position of the United States. The information encapsulated a deal seemingly worth $28.7 million contracted to SpaceX by the United States Air Force to conduct experiments to unravel how data connectivity can be achieved between ground sites, space assets, and aircraft. It unassumingly meant that the US military was taking full advantage of Starlink's worldwide broadband network. It's now been suggested that SpaceX's tests of Starlink's internet are pretty much a demonstration for the US Air Force. Space News gave us an insight which stated that the US Army had exclusive use of Starlink broadband for data transfer as well, and they signed a deal with SpaceX to use the service for 3 years, which if true would last until the middle of 2023. It would prove advantageous to the US Army as their communications channel gets improved with easier and swift access to data like never before, and this is what the Chinese are wary of. One of their primary concerns is that there would be no significant difference between SpaceX's deployment of its broadband for civilians and the military, and they can quickly assist the US Army in future wars. Ultimately, this could pose a security challenge to other countries. Does this mean that other countries might technically be incapable of defeating the US Army with SpaceX at their side? It would seem so. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a source of much concern. It does beg questions about how we're so concerned about how another world war could potentially lift off when there's no apparent reason to warrant such a war. Is the Chinese preparing for some future on-field scuffle with the US? China's struggles with the US have been nothing short of the competition in trade, technology, and worldwide dominance. Both nations are doing well on their distinct ends. With the advancement recorded by both countries, should the world descend into chaos due to what would seem like a pretty healthy competition to keep the world's power on its toes? It seems the lines of confrontation are now drawn at space technology being the scene of the hottest competition between China and the US. Honestly, the cooperation between the US could help the US rise above the likes of China in terms of communication technology, and the US might finally be able to bridge the growing gap with China. 5G technology is full use in China, and it has spurred a speedy growth in their technology. But you would think that China would be contented with the advantage that they hold over the US, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Aside from their concern about the boost it would give the US's data system, they also have noted a significant feature of SpaceX technology that poses a danger to them and the rest of the world. Chinese experts noted that the Starlink satellites are not too big yet cheap, and as a result, SpaceX has been able to mass produce them and launch them. They're also easy to control from the ground, which makes them wary of the risks attached to the US commanding the satellites to attack another country's projects. It wouldn't just be a massive loss in monetary terms, but a loss of lives for astronauts on board the spacecraft. An alarm has thus been raised in the international community that SpaceX still has more of these satellites scheduled to launch this year and intends to clarify things with the US. Several addendums have been held to provide clear answers to these concerns and ease the worries of other national officials. The US and SpaceX officials have done very little to persuade China and other concerned bodies about their harmless intentions. In a way, their responses haven't necessarily debunked the conspiracy theories that suggest that Starlink could be a source of attacks on other nations. What makes it more challenging to bind SpaceX is that it's not a governmental body and thus cannot be bound by international laws. While not necessarily dealing with the US government, its status as a company in the US meant that its growth is seen as a technological advantage to its home country. Hence, the dominance of SpaceX in space technology is a sign of US dominance. What could be the inherent solution to ensure that peace reigns over the future of space explorations? We think there could be a passing of new bills reinforcing new and existing treaties on outer space exploration. The old laws set in the 1960s and 70s applied strictly to national space agencies, and SpaceX automatically exists outside the bounds of such laws. Unless there are any strict regulations, we might not see the end of concerns of this nature. What do you think would be a credible solution to this? And what do you think of China's insistence on SpaceX in recent times? Let us know what you think in the comment box. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to smash the like and subscribe buttons. Goodbye and stay safe.